Welcome in, everybody. Sunday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope you didn't have any money on Rory McIlroy. Yeah, we are going live here, 7 p.m. Eastern time. You know, I'll be completely transparent. I was trying to wait till the end of the Masters. I figured, hey, everybody that wants to watch a show like this is wanting to watch the end of the Masters. And so we were trying to wait until the end, until Rory missed that putt on 18. It is now 7:03 Eastern time. And I said, I can't wait all night for Rory McIlroy to finish up what he is doing here on a Sunday at the Masters. Unbelievable drama. But we got a show to do, people. So loaded show, fun show. By the way, everybody in the chat, feel free to drop, like when we actually get decided, like when we actually figure out like where, like where Rory McIlroy, does he win? Does Justin Rose win? Whatever, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm just here to do my normal Sunday show. By the way, feel terrible for Rory. Obviously a short putt away from winning the Masters. We are going to sudden death, extra time, whatever you want to call it, in golf. But yeah, we're going to focus on the college sports scene that we cover so much here on the Aaron Torres Pod. Loaded show today. I'll tell you this, a lot of you probably have never even heard me talk college football before. We have thousands of new listeners in the last month to 2 months. We got to talk a little bit about the Nico Iamaleava situation at Tennessee. I don't even think it's a college football story. I think it's a state of college sports story. So we'll discuss what happened at Tennessee, what it means for the bigger picture of college sports, why I think Josh Heupel did everything right. And just where do we go from here? Because I don't think college sports can keep going on like this. From there, we will talk about a busy weekend in college hoops. The winner, Mark Pope. Yes, I am the guy that did the segment about 2 weeks ago of why does Mark Pope keep missing on dudes? Well, he gets the Croatian big man. Brandon Garrison comes back, and as we speak, he is schmoozing the crap out of Lamar Wilkerson. So we'll talk about his busy weekend. And then I do kind of want to just wrap with just some general portal talk. Listen, what do we got? About 8 days left for the portal to be open before it closes. A lot of teams need a lot of players. And so I've had a lot of people ask me over the course of the weekend, Torres, who's even in the portal at this point? Where are they leaning towards? What do we need to know? So we will do a weekend portal report, getting you caught up on everything. And again, everybody keep me updated on the Masters here as we get deeper into the show. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We appreciate your support. Also, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. That stuff still matters. If you want to do your boy Torres a favor, download the podcast on Apple, download it on Spotify. It really does go a long way, helps us with advertisers, helps us with partners. And lets everybody know just what this audience is that we've built. Over 54,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's unbelievable. By the way, we're starting to hear back from the advertisers from March Madness. They loved working with us. Some have already renewed for the fall, so we are so grateful for all of you. But if you're not subscribed on YouTube, make sure to do so. And then again, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your pods. Really quickly, speaking of advertisers, speaking of partners, speaking of friends, you know where I'm going to go right now. There's only one place to go. My friends, my partners, Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Okay, so listen, it's that time of year. It is now mid-April. The azaleas are blooming in Augusta. And you know what that means? It means it's almost summertime. It's almost beach time. You need to lose some weight there. So do I. Don't worry. I was in San Antonio for 8 days. I need to lose some weight as well. I only bring it up to very simply say that as you go on your, your journey to your beach bod this summer, you need a snack that is both healthy but delicious as well. People, you need Collie Puffs, and you need them from ColliePuffs.com. Okay, so I've told you about Collie Puffs, family-owned company, really cool. I saw Joey and Brian, the founders of Collie Puffs, on Saturday, got together. It was awesome. Great people, family-owned company, not far from where I live. They're all sports fans. By the way, I was telling my buddy Brian, I said, dude, you got to get into the Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool because the Survivor Pool was a blast. But I bring it up because they're sports fans. They love sports. And they were all sitting on the couch one day. Joey, his brother Brian, they were like, we need a snack that's healthy. We need a snack that's delicious. We need to create something. And they created Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Okay, I've told you all about them, but this is the healthy alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle, okay? baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But the best part is, people, they taste freaking delicious as well, okay? And so for you, what you need to do, try them out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Try them out for yourself. Go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CauliPuffs.com, ColliePuffs.com. You can also find them on Amazon.com. Just search Amazon.com. Just go on there, search Collie Puffs. You'll find them. You'll love them. Yeah, there's nothing else to say. You love Collie Puffs. You need Collie Puffs. You want Collie Puffs. You're looking for a snack that's healthy and delicious. Visit ColliePuffs.com or Amazon.com as well. With that said, let me say this, for April, no college basketball. It was a busy weekend in the world of sports. There is no more time to waste. So yeah, let's get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day, listen, I said it to lead the show. We have had thousands upon thousands of people find this show, find this channel, find the YouTube. And basically, bottom line is that a lot of you have never heard me talk college football. So my background is I worked at FoxSports.com. I cover college football and college basketball. Now, I think as my career has gone on, we tend to talk more college basketball than most people. I love talking college ball. We're going to get to college basketball in a second with Mark Pope in Kentucky. But we have to talk about what was not only, but I talk a lot of college football as well. That's the point I guess I'm trying to make. We got to talk about a story that was not only a huge college football story. This became a national story. And I think it became an inflection point for where we are with NIL, where things are going, and why we so desperately need rule changes. I'm, of course, talking about that guy, Nico Iamaleava, the one-time Tennessee quarterback who, of course, is no more, okay? And so what I want to do, I want to talk about this from every angle, the big picture, the small picture. I know 99% of you who are listening know all of the backstory. And if you did just come in for basketball, I promise we'll get to basketball here in just a minute or two. But let me just give you a little bit of background on Nico, because I do think it is important context as far as the story of how we've even gotten to where we are with NIL in general. And I think Nico is a big part of the reason why we are at where we are in college football and college basketball as far as NIL is concerned, okay? So Nico Iamaleava, first of all, grew up not far from where I live here in Southern California, Long Beach. It's ironic. I have a friend whose daughter actually attended high school with Nico's younger brother, Madden Iamaleava. So family is kind of football, royalty feels like a little bit much, but, Nico's been awesome. His brother is now at Arkansas. But I bring it up because Nico really was the first ever, if you will, NIL baby in college sports. Okay, if you remember, it was actually March of 2022. I remember we had to interrupt March tournament coverage to talk about Nico because he was a high school junior going into his senior year. He commits to Tennessee, and we find out exactly how much Tennessee is willing to pay him. And at the time, he signed what was essentially a 4-year, $8 million contract to be the Tennessee Volunteers quarterback. Now, of course, it wasn't an actual contract. And, Tennessee was going to figure out how the NIL stuff all worked once he got to campus. And to be clear, just for any Tennessee fan listening, this is not going to be a knock Tennessee conversation. That's not what this is about at all. But I think Nico was really the first one that kind of made us realize, oh, this is what NIL can be. And this is where NIL is going. We put in NIL. Now, if you listen to this show back then, I was always somebody that just did not believe that it was ever going to be this thing where, you go and you pay somebody $50 to appear at a car wash, or you do an autograph signing for $100 at a car dealership. I thought as soon as we, opened up the floodgates, it was going to become pay for play. I remember arguing with people about it in the mainstream media. And I only bring it up because Nico was really kind of the first one that it was like, oh, this is where it's going. He's going to get paid $2 million as a senior in high school because California has NIL, allows NIL in high school. On top of it, he's not only going to get paid in high school, he'll get paid likely as a redshirt freshman. And then we'll see over the next 2 years if he can elevate Tennessee to the highest levels of college football. Well, to sort of his credit, he was a starter this past year, first fall as a starter, does lead Tennessee to the college football playoff. Now, if you watch Tennessee, a lot of it was Dylan Sampson in the run game. A lot of it was the defense. Nico was fine. I'm not going to sit here and tear down the kid and say he was the worst quarterback that's ever played college football. But if you follow college football and you love college football, you know that he was probably, I would call him good, certainly not great, and certainly not the reason or not the main reason why Tennessee made the college football playoff. Finishes the year 2,600 passing yards, 19 touchdown passes, but 4 of those TDs come against UTEP, 4 come against Vandy. He had 0 against Georgia, 0 against Ohio State in the playoffs, 0 against Florida. So you do the math. Was really good against bad teams, was kind of only okay against good or good or great teams. And so it was whatever. Good, not great, but this is what Tennessee had agreed to pay him, so whatever. And so I bring it up because up until this week, we just thought, okay, good quarterback. He's going to get better. Let's see what happens in Josh Heupel's system going into his third year, his second year as a starter. But what's been interesting, if you follow college sports, is that while Nico was really probably the first one to be the NIL baby, to sign that contract in high school that essentially guarantees him money, even though, of course, it can't technically guarantee him, the market kind of around him evolved, right? And so basically what has happened over the last couple weeks, Nico has basically seen all of these other guys sign even bigger contracts than what he agreed to. About $2.5 million was what he was set to make this year. He said, wait a second now. Carson Beck goes to Miami. He's getting $4 million. Darian Mensah is going to Duke. He's getting $3 to $4 million. How am I only getting $2.5 million? And when I say Nico, I think everybody understands it's his family, it's his dad, it's whatever. But basically, they went to Tennessee in December and said, well, listen, two and a half is great, but the market now says that a starting quarterback in major college football should be getting 3.5 to 4, and we want 4. And so they've been talking behind the scenes. And it was this past Thursday, about 72 hours ago. It seems like it was much longer than that basically the first report from Pete Nakos comes out. I want to see if I can find the exact quote from Pete's tweet. Pete does a great job, by the way. I think Pete's gained a lot of street cred over the last couple weeks with everything that has happened, with Nico. But so Pete puts out a tweet on Thursday night, and it says, Tennessee and Nico Iamaleava are in active contract negotiations ahead of the 2025 season. It is unclear if negotiations will impact whether he enters the spring transfer portal. And so that is very obvious what that means. That means that Nico, who's the starter, it's the middle of spring practice, spring game on Saturday, he is trying to twist. And when I say he, I mean his camp, but you get the point. He and his camp are trying to twist Tennessee's arm, basically using the spring football portal, which is about to open here in a couple days, to basically try to leverage, hey, if you don't give us a new contract, we're walking. And we're going to see what else is out there. And there were reports that he actually reached out to Oregon. His camp reached out to Oregon to try to engage them in a bidding war. And so I just bring it up because this whole thing blows up Thursday. Tennessee fans, I think, were a little skeptical of the report on Thursday. Then Friday, Nico doesn't show up to practice. And so it is very clear at that point that Nico and his camp are very much in contract negotiations. Nobody can get a hold of Nico. And by Friday afternoon, still can't get a hold of him. And at that point, it just feels like it is basically an unfixable situation. This kid bailed on his team, bailed on his teammates, was basically a contract holdout a day before the spring game, 3 days before the portal opens. And by Friday night, it just felt like, man, I don't know if he can come back. Saturday morning, it is officially announced that he, of course, is not coming back. He will enter the portal. He and his camp tried to leverage Tennessee for more than the 2.5. They thought Tennessee would blink. They thought there's no way they're going to let a starting quarterback off of a playoff team enter the portal. And that's exactly what Tennessee did. So I got a lot of thoughts here. I got some big picture, some small picture. I think the small picture stuff first. First of all, let me say this. And I think 99% of Tennessee fans, and I think 99% of college sports fans in general agree with me on this. Shout out to Josh Heupel. Shout out to Danny White, Shout out to Tennessee. Bottom line is, again, when Nico and his camp brought this up on Thursday, I think they felt like they were going to put the public pressure on Tennessee, and Tennessee didn't cave. Tennessee basically said, this is the number we agreed to. Let's be honest, Nico, you were not that good. First of all, let's even backtrack. Let's not forget, they paid Nico when he was in high school. They paid Nico $2 million a year while he was redshirting. They were like, we've done right by you. Oh, by the way, I know this for a fact. They went into the portal and got a bunch of guys that Nico wanted. Wide receivers. They upgraded the O-line. David Sanders, #1 offensive tackle in America, committed to Tennessee. And so they were just basically like, we're paying you really well. You didn't really perform. We paid you a lot of money even when you weren't playing, and we spent money to get you the pieces that we wanted. And so I give Josh Heupel credit. Now, I think to me, he was kind of left between a rock and a hard. I don't think he really had a choice, right? By Friday night, he is basically there's only one decision for him to make. If Tennessee caves to Nico Iamaleava, well, guess what? Now you got 84 guys in that locker room that are furious, and they're all coming to you and saying, we need to renegotiate as well. So I thought Josh Heupel did the smart thing, did the logical thing, did the thing that made the most sense of, I'm putting the other 84 guys in this locker room ahead of this guy. If he wants to be selfish, if he feels like his contract isn't right, whatever, but we have a priority to the guys that want to be here, to the guys that are going to abide by what they agreed to. I give Josh Heupel and his camp, the Tennessee administration, a ton of credit. I think conversely, the opposite can be true as well. I think Nico's camp handled this about as poorly as they possibly could. Now, I want to take a half a second. I know nobody's going to feel sorry for Nico. $4 million over the last 2 years, 3 years, really. So probably made closer to $6 million from Tennessee and their collective Spire Sports. Nobody feels bad for him, but it feels clear to me that this was not his decision. All the reporting was that he was at the OC's house on Thursday night with the other quarterbacks. That does not sound to me like a guy that anticipated that by Saturday morning he would have no choice but to enter the transfer portal. But his family, his representation, my understanding is that his dad and kind of a family friend are basically the one trying to do all these negotiations. The family friend and the dad, they played a game of Russian roulette and they lost. Like, I hate to say it. I think that when they put out the initial report, they thought that they were going to be the sympathetic figure, that they were going to be the ones that basically everybody said, oh, poor Iamaleava family. He outperformed his original contract. We should feel so bad for him. And I think what Tennessee fans' first thought was, well, one, is this not true? Because, of course, the dad went after Pete Nakos, the reporter. So this just report isn't true. But then when it comes out that Nico isn't at practice, it's obviously true. And we have zero sympathy. We as fans have done everything for you. We paid you a lot of money when you weren't playing. We paid you a lot of money when you were in high school. Tennessee fans, you could correct me in the chat, but Nico is of Samoan descent, and there's all sorts of jewelry and jerseys, and they have gone above and beyond supporting that kid. And I think the family just dropped the ball. I think there's no other way to put it. The family thought, we are going to be the publicly sympathetic figures. There's no way the fan base is going to want to lose a starting quarterback in the spring right before we go into the summer where the options are going to be limited. And they were completely wrong. One thing I could say, listen, you guys know me. I don't speak for any fan base. One thing about Tennessee fans are loyal. Tennessee is one of the incredible fan bases in college sports. Okay, they put up with a lot of stuff during the Derek Dooley and the Butch Jones era and dating back to even before that, whatever. But I just bring it up because it's a two-way street, and it's a two-way street for every fan base. UConn, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, whatever. We're going to love you. We're going to do everything we can to do right by you, but you got to do right by us. And this whole thing that you think you're going to try to leverage us for more money 2 days before the portal, kick rocks, dude, and take a hike. And so the family completely butchered it. I do feel bad for Nico. Let me say this. My last small picture takeaway, I do feel bad for Nico because I do think that let me put it this way. I think that realistically, he's going to end up in a worse situation than he is right now. And so to me, and I'll get into that in a second, to me, the biggest loser is Nico. It's not Tennessee. Tennessee, I think fans understand, hey, it's good. We're going to have to be aggressive in the portal. We got to see who's in there. We're going to, we got to find somebody quick. Okay. But Tennessee is not the big loser here. The big loser here is Nico. And who I don't know how he's sleeping at night. I got to be honest, is the dad. Because listen, I'm not a father, okay? But I'm very blessed because my two parents, they would have done anything regardless to put me in the best position to succeed. Give me the shirt off their back. Give me the last coin in their pocket. Nico's dad did the exact opposite. Nico was on the trajectory that they dreamed of when Nico was probably 7, 8, 9 years old, picking up a football for the first time. He was making money that nobody could have ever imagined a decade ago you could make in college football. playing for a playoff team, offensive head coach, and he was on trajectory to be in the NFL. Now he's entering the portal, and I think he is in a situation where it's hard for me to see the scenario where he ends up in an equal to or better situation than he's in right now. Obviously, we know the schools that he's going to be tied to. He's going to be tied to USC, UCLA. He's from LA. I've heard all sorts of stuff. Texas Tech obviously has money to burn. Ohio State, I've heard they're not totally happy with the quarterback room right now. Julian Sainz, kind of the leader going into the summer. I just bring it up because let's say he goes to UCLA. Let's say he goes to USC. Even USC with Lincoln Riley. Like, Lincoln Riley is a great play caller, but that's not a better offensive line. That's not a better defense. I mean, Caleb Williams got killed back there 2 years ago because the infrastructure wasn't in place. And so now you sacrificed a little bit of money for development, for getting better, for comfort, for evolution, basically being in the same system for a third year going into next year. You just sacrificed it all. And now with Nico, you know what's going to happen? He's going to have to go somewhere. He's going to have no spring practice. He's going to have to get to know new teammates, a new playbook, a new system, probably inferior teammates and talent around him than he had at Tennessee. It's just a train wreck, and I don't see the scenario where Nico is in a better situation next year to be in position to get drafted than he is this year. And so this is, let's call DCFS because this is parental abuse, okay? This is an embarrassment for the family, and it's an embarrassment for Nico's dad. And again, I don't know how he's sleeping at night because he screwed this thing up so bad, and I'm not afraid to say it. He could tweet at me like he tweeted at Nikos. I don't care. I'm a big boy. I can handle it, but this is embarrassing for him and his family. Lastly, let me say this. I know a lot of you are here to talk college hoops. Let's go ahead and talk about the state of NIL. This to me feels like an inflection point, okay? I am somebody who, listen, if you're an OG listener of this show, you know that as soon as the first NIL laws became a thing in California years ago, we talked about the possibility and we talked about the reality. This is going to become pay for play. It's going to become an arms race. I remember being on in Knoxville with Russell Smith, who, of course, is the great radio host, 3 to 6 Eastern in Knoxville. I remember saying, how long until we get to a point where you're going to have to cut a swimming and diving program, where the booster that gave $1 million to the General Athletic Fund now is going to be paying for an offensive tackle or a defensive lineman or whatever. So we are at this inflection point. It came even faster than I expected, and I don't know what the resolution is for college sports, because this does feel like an inflection point. This feels like a point where even the people that were in favor of NIL, and I wasn't anti-NIL, I was anti-NIL without guardrails, and then we quickly saw how NIL plus a basically revolving portal that's open twice a year, how quickly it could get out of control. Again, I remember, how about this? I remember being on in Tuscaloosa and talking to my buddy Ryan Fowler and saying, what would keep Bryce Young, this was coming off of his Heisman year, entering the portal just to see what else is out there? Will Texas offer him this? Will Texas A&M? Whatever, you get the point. So the point that I am trying to make is just that, in my opinion, this felt like the inflection point of like, oh, we need to figure some stuff out because we cannot keep going like this. Nico had a great deal. I would argue probably, I don't want to say underachieved because Tennessee made the playoff, but I don't think he is what everybody thought he would be in terms of a player. And now he's asking for more, and now he's using the portal as leverage. Can we figure out a way to pay players without it simply becoming, hey, if you don't give me more money, if I'm not going to renegotiate with you every like we can't keep doing this. Every guy on the roster can't keep wanting to renegotiate every 6 months. That's not how it's going to work. That's not how it should work. That's not how we need it to work. And so the conversation becomes, what do we do? I don't have the answers. I'm not a labor lawyer. I'm not a lawyer in general. But the thing I know, we can't keep going on like this. We can't keep going on where every single offseason players are spending half of the time trying to negotiate, trying to get a few more bucks, trying to this, trying to that. And you know what else I would say? Everybody wants to blame the NCAA. And I think the NCAA is certainly at fault. But you know what I was thinking about? Do you remember, what was it, about 5-6 years ago, when it was pretty clear this is where we were going, and the NCAA started allowing agents into the NILs or into college sports? And if you remember, the NCAA tried to put in rules and regulations on who could represent players. And one of the rules and regulations was you had to have a college degree. And of course, what happens? Oh, well, Rich Paul doesn't have a degree. Well, this is the Rich Paul rule. It's so racist to say that if an agent needs no. First of all, the NCAA had no idea that Rich Paul didn't have a degree. But I'm bringing it up because the reason they put those rules in place was to try to avoid situations like this, to have players working with credible representatives, credible agencies, and people that know what they're doing, not dudes that are just pulling stuff out of their butts like Nico's dad and the family friend were. So this is a complete disaster. And to me, I just feel like this is an inflection point for all of college sports where I think everybody realizes, we've seen other coaches talk about it. Mario Cristobal was like, dude, anybody tries that crap with me, they're hitting the street. Dan Lanning kind of avoided a question, but this is a topic in every college football coaching office right now. People are like, what the heck just happened? How do we make sure this doesn't happen here? So I will be interested to see. I actually do feel bad for Nico. The big question becomes what's next for him and what's next for Tennessee. Tennessee is obviously going to be pursuing a portal QB. I'm not sold that the market for Nico is going to be as big as people think. And to take it a step further, I don't think he's getting more money than he had at Tennessee. Just an absolute train wreck. I feel bad for virtually everybody involved except for the dad, who clearly has had his hand out since the day Nico picked up a football. Just a tough day. And if you love college sports, it was certainly a crap show. But I give credit to Josh Heupel. I give credit to Tennessee for, what do the kids say? Standing on business. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. By the way, if you're a Vol fan just coming in for the first time, Torres on the Vols. Ben is our intern that is a UT student, covers the crap out of Tennessee. We are talking wall-to-wall Nico. We're talking portal with the Tennessee basketball team. So make sure you're following Torres on the Vols if you are a Tennessee fan. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about college hoops. Mark Pope, monster weekend. Also, who actually is left in the portal and what is going to happen with them? We'll take a quick break. Be right back.
What's up, everybody? It's AT, and listen, long day of podcasting, sometimes don't always look the best. So look at this. This is a little bit not great, okay? Well, here is the great news. The great people at FioBox said, Torres, you're a professional. You just got 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. You need to look better. And so they sent me a couple awesome things. I want to pull them out for you right now. This is all from the winter collection, by the way. Spring collection is coming out. We got the vest, very nice. The sweater, very professional for when I go to professional events. We got these nice blue jeans. I think the question now everybody's asking is, Torres, how do you actually look when you put that stuff on? Let's find out. Well, what do you think? Sweater fits perfectly. Great for all occasions. When I go to games, when I go out to a dinner, warm weather, cool weather, it's perfect. Speaking of perfect, these jeans are phenomenal. Great for games, great for social events. Oh, by the way, a little bit stretchy if those New Year's resolutions aren't going on as planned. Really quickly, we got to try out. Let's try out the vest. It fits perfectly, not a surprise. So here's the deal. If you want to look as good as Torres, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go to FioBox.com. That's FIOBOC. FioBox.com. And here's the best part. For listeners to the Aaron Torres pod, you get 20% off with code Torres20 at checkout. We also put a referral link in all of our YouTube videos. Thank you to FioBox. By the way, make sure you're following them on social media at FIOBOC. Thank you to FioBox. You want to look as good as Torres, check them out. Again, promo code Torres20.
All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So, tell you what. Hold on one second. I have to do a little clever editing here. Hold on. So first of all, we'll do that. Producer Matt, by the way, is not in good shape. I don't know what he caught in San Antonio, but producer Matt is out tonight, so Torres is doing all his own producing. But I'll tell you what. Let's take it from the top, as the kids say. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. So first of all, do we have a final at the Masters yet? Just stepped out for half a second. I saw them interviewing Justin Rose. Have they started? Have they not started? I'm a little confused. I'll be perfectly honest. That's one. Two, I just dropped the link to the pod in the YouTube chat. If you are listening on YouTube, do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, download some episodes. It does really help us with the advertisers, all that good stuff. As always, we appreciate the support of advertisers. By the way, I should mention, I do appreciate the support of all you guys and girls because we did monster numbers in March. All the advertisers were happy. They're all basically in line to renew for the fall. So thank you all. Appreciate you all. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit of college hoops, okay? So again, we don't talk much college football this time of year. Nico obviously was a topic that we had to discuss. But now what we got to do, we got to go ahead and talk a little bit of college hoops because it is still portal season. It is still roster building season. I call it chisme season. That means gossip in Spanish. There's a lot of gossip. What's true? What's not? What's this? What's that? So we're going to go ahead and do a big picture portal conversation in just a minute. But where we have to start with the portal conversation is the man who had the monster weekend over the course of the last couple days, and he might not be done yet. Yeah, I'm talking Mark Pope, head coach of Kentucky. Okay, so yes, so first of all, I'm going to do the Eminem thing. You know, Eminem, 8 Mile. Remember, he does the whole rap where he basically makes fun of himself so his opponent can't make fun of him. So everybody's going to come in the chat. Oh, Torres, you were criticizing Mark Pope 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. I did a segment saying Mark Pope keeps missing on big recruits. How worried should Kentucky fans be? But in that moment, it felt like it was concerning. Yeah. Then Mark Pope got Mo Diabate. He got Jalen Lowe. He got Jaden Quaintance. And then he had a weekend for the ages. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first big piece of news, by the way, I'll just apologize in advance. I'm going to butcher this name. But Saturday, I was actually with the Collie Puffs boys. I was with Brian and Joey from Collie Puffs. We were at an event. And I bring it up because I turn on my phone. I see the news that Andrija Jelavic, a 6'11" forward from Croatia who played for Mega BMAX in Serbia, has committed to the Kentucky Wildcats, one of the top international prospects in all of the world, is headed to Lexington. And then, oh, by the way, the bigger news that came just moments later, Brandon Garrison, former McDonald's All-American, began his career at Oklahoma State, played at Kentucky this past year. Yeah, Brandon Garrison commits to returning for a junior season, a second year with the Kentucky Wildcats. So, oh, by the way, last I signed on, Lamar Wilkerson, guard from Sam Houston State, is at Keeneland Racetrack, the horse races, with Mark Pope. We'll see if some news breaks by the end of this show. By the way, if you're watching on late Sunday, early Monday, maybe a Lamar Wilkerson commitment happens. If it does, don't be mad we didn't cover it right now. We're doing this in real time at 7:34 Eastern time. So let's go ahead and dive into a busy weekend for Mark Pope. First of all, I kind of want to work backwards. I want to start with Brandon Garrison, okay? Because I think if you just look at Brandon Garrison's stats, he averaged, 6 points and 4 rebounds per game. And if you're not a Kentucky fan, you're going to sit there and say, oh, who cares? It's not a big deal. Who is this guy? Why is a guy like Torres even talking about it on this show? This is a big deal, okay? First of all, as I said, Brandon Garrison, 6'11", really closer to 7 feet, super athletic. And I think the thing that stood out for me was a great role player for the Kentucky Wildcats this past season. Yes, he only averaged 6.5 points per game. But if you actually watch the games, there were certain games where he absolutely positively carried the Kentucky Wildcats. How about the game against Gonzaga? 10.9 rebounds. Kentucky wins in overtime in Seattle. He had 11 and 6 against Bama. Tough loss with 5 assists. That was the game at Rupp that could have gone either way. 13 points and 5 boards against Georgia. 15 points and 4 boards against LSU late in the year. 12 points and 4 boards in a win against Oklahoma. So he's not a finished product, but he was never supposed to be a finished product. He came last year to back up Amari Williams. He was one of the best backup big men in the country. And now he's coming back for another year. And why this is important is a couple things. One, besides the fact that he's really good, I think there was real thought that he wasn't going to come back. And, this is always the fine line in college basketball this time of year when you hit the portal. You have an opportunity sometimes to take good players, but what does it mean for guys on the roster? And so I bring it up because obviously last week, Mark Pope adds Jaden Quaintance, superstar, dynamic power forward / center from Arizona State, former McDonald's All-American, former 5-star, youngest player in college basketball this past year, all Big 12 freshman team, previously had been committed to Kentucky. And in that moment, you want to celebrate it. But then you start to hear rumors of, well, how does that impact Brandon Garrison? Does he feel like he's not going to get a starting spot? Does that mean that he may decide to enter the portal as well? And I think there were a couple days of very anxious times if you're a Kentucky Wildcats fan. And I think even if you're a Kentucky Wildcats coach or somebody in that building, you just don't know. And so to get Brandon Garrison back, that is huge. Because first off, let's remember this about Jaden Quaintance. And I love Jaden Quaintance. I think he's one of the most I think he's going to be like phenomenal next year. But he is coming off ACL surgery. And we do have no idea if he'll actually be ready for the start of the season. Now, I've been told that he will be. I've been told that he should be back on the court by mid to late August. He should be able to ramp up, should be doing 5-on-5 in the preseason. But you just never know with major knee surgeries. And even if he's back, it's hard to imagine he's going to be 100% on night one. Remember, first week of the season, you play Michigan State in the Champions Classic. You got Gonzaga in Nashville. You got Louisville in the out-of-conference. I mean, the schedule is thankless. And so to now you don't have to rush back Jaden Quaintance. Now you don't have to worry about what if he isn't ready to go 100% on the opening night. And then to take it a step further, it's even better. What happens when he does come back? What if he is 100%? What if he is capable on opening night of playing? Now you have one of the most ferocious backcourts or front courts in all of college basketball. I think you can play those two together. I know from the Quaintance camp, I don't think that they think of Jaden as just a true 5-man, of just he's going to park his butt in the paint and, going to rebound and give energy. No. He wants to be able to do more on the perimeter. He wants to be able to shoot more. He wants to play with another big guy. He doesn't always want to guard an opposing team's 5. And so now you can play both of them together. You can play both of them separate. You're basically too deep with McDonald's All-Americans at the 5 spot. But again, you can also play them together. Now, really quickly from Jelavic perspective, Andrija Jelavic, listen, I'd be lying if I said I knew a ton about him. But what I will say is a couple things. Mega BMAX is one of the best. They are one of the best European teams in Europe, especially in the developmental game. I remember, Kentucky fans, you may remember this. Remember about 4 or 5 years ago, you guys played in the Bahamas. You played Mega BMAX. And they were a team that had 3, 4, 5 guys that were on the trajectory to be drafted. And so with Jelavic, I can't say I'm not an NBA scout, but is he a player that I believe is capable of being in the NBA? Yeah, he is. Pretty athletic for a guy his size, can shoot the crap out of the ball. And I think most importantly, what stands out to me, I think he kind of brings something that nobody else in your front court next year has. You have Brandon Garrison. I love Brandon Garrison. I just raved about Brandon Garrison. But this past season, Brandon Garrison was a 30% three-point shooter. Jaden Quaintance, not a very good three-point shooter at this time in his career. Mo Diabate is not a great three-point shooter. And so this kid is 6'11", probably going to play them 4 mostly for you, and he can stretch the floor. He's not a great three-point shooter, but he's a very good three-point shooter. Looks like a player that could project to an NBA guy. And you're talking about this guy as probably, when Jaden Quaintance is healthy, your 4th big man behind Diabate, behind Brandon Garrison, behind Jaden Quaintance, and now you have this guy? That is ferocious, and that is monstrous, okay? And what I would say as we start to wrap on this segment, a couple things stand out. First off, I'm going to work under the assumption that Otega Oweh does eventually come back, okay? I know nothing's official yet. I assume it will come at some point, but I only bring it up to very simply say that if Otega Oweh comes back, this team has just about everything, okay? First of all, we talked about it when Jaden Quaintance committed. I love the athleticism and the physicality of this front court. By the way, I didn't even mention Malachi Moreno, a McDonald's All-American who's committed and playing in the front court. But I bring it up because you look at this front court, and I go back to when Jaden Quaintance committed, and we talked about it. The best thing you can have as a fan is not only a good coach, but a coach that is aware. What do I mean by that? I think Mark Pope learned a very valuable lesson in year 1 in the SEC. I think it was great to have all that shooting, all that spacing, all that this, and our offense is so fun. But there were times where they just weren't athletic enough. They just weren't tough enough. They just weren't physical enough. They just got bullied. They got bullied by Auburn at Rupp Arena. They got bullied 3 separate times by Alabama with Cliff Omiori, with Grant Nelson, with all the big guys that they had in that front court. They got bullied in the Sweet 16 by Tennessee, where you could just see about 5 minutes in that game, you're like, oh, they don't have the athleticism to keep up. And so it's clear to me that Mark Pope has kind of prioritized, hey, we're going to give up a little bit on the skill side to make sure that we're athletic enough and we're tough enough. That's what Jaden Quaytons brings. That's what Diabate brings. I think Jalen Lowe brings that at the point guard spot. But then they now add more of that with Brandon Garrison. When Brandon Garrison, say what you want about, he wasn't scared when he stepped in the SEC. He was one of the few guys that athletically could handle things in the SEC. And so I love that. I love the skill that Jelavic brings. And I look at this team, and it's basically complete. Kentucky fans, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you need probably one more guard, which brings us to Lamar Wilkerson. We'll get to that in a minute. You need one more guard. Front court or the back court, excuse me. You do have Jalen Lowe. We're assuming Otega Owe is back. Jasper Johnson, who of course is 5-star player, whatever. But you did lose Kirk Risa. You did lose a Caden Lewis as a player who was committed, who decommitted last week. And so I think you need one more guard. Now, respectfully, I think in the moment we saw that Travis Perry, if need be, can be an SEC guard. Now, I don't think he's a guy you want to rely on for 28, 29 minutes, but at the same time, he is a serviceable guy. But it feels like you're one piece away from, I think Kentucky's already a top 10 team, in my opinion. The question is, can you get that last piece, that bucket getter, that guy that fills the ball in the basket? And if you can, what does it mean for next season? Obviously, the guy that everybody is pursuing right now, Lamar Wilkerson. For people who were not paying attention on Sunday, Lamar Wilkerson actually took a visit to Indiana earlier in the weekend. I think Indiana was probably perceived as the favorite coming in. Then goes to Kentucky on Sunday. Mark Pope, you little devil, you little devil, Mark Pope, takes him to Keeneland, the racetrack. I saw him, with the horses, and they're bringing the horse to Victory Circle or Victory Lane. I know Victory Lane's more of a NASCAR thing, whatever. What I'm trying to make, Lamar Wilkerson looked like he was having the time of his life. Now, I don't expect Lamar Wilkerson. We'll talk a little bit about him more in the portal segment to come. I don't expect Lamar Wilkerson to necessarily commit prior to taking all his visits. Indiana, Kentucky, he still has Ole Miss and Auburn. But to me, you land Lamar Wilkerson, we're talking about a top 5 team going into next year. I love the front court. I love the athleticism. I love the listen, I look at rosters all day, every day this time of year. There's not that many teams that have the toughness and athleticism in the front court of Brandon Garrison, Jaden Quaytons, Mo Diabate, on and on. And then, of course, you have the toughness and athleticism in the backcourt of Jalen Lowe and Otega Owe as well. So 1, got to get back Otega Owe. 2, I do think you're probably looking at one more guy that you probably need in the backcourt, but Mark Pope is cooking. Yes, I'm the guy that 8-10 days ago said, why does Mark Pope keep missing on guys? But he is cooking with gasoline. I don't know. I said it wrong the other day and somebody got mad at me, but Mark Pope is freaking cooking right now. Okay. And we'll see if he can close with Lamar Wilkerson. So what we're going to do, we're going to take one more break, come back, look at some of your questions. And after we get to your questions, we're going to talk about the rest of the portal, because the portal, there's still some really good players in there. It's open for another week. I think more good players are going in. We're going to discuss who is actually still in the portal, where they could possibly end up. We'll take a quick break, talk portal when we come back. Appreciate everybody joining us on a loaded Sunday night. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. More Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Deion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast question. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. First of all, I should have mentioned in the last segment, you got to get your Hope and Pope tees. Hope and Pope, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Pope is cooking. You need, by the way, summer's coming up, Father's Day's coming up, Mother's Day's coming up. You know, you want to stick something in the Easter basket for the Easter bunny. Easter's coming up. Hope and Pope t-shirts, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. All right, let's go ahead and wrap the show. And what I want to do now, I want to talk about just the state of the portal, okay? Because to me, I find it very interesting. And I've been saying this for weeks, is that in my opinion, we're basically at a point where there are now way more spots that need to be filled as far as good teams that need players than there are actual players that are good enough to fill those spots. Okay. And so it's interesting, we're not going to get into it today, but I saw, Jeff Goodman was putting out stats about, a starter costs this much in the portal and a backup costs this and whatever. And then I saw, I think it was Travis Branham say that he thinks that probably there are 8 to 10 schools paying $10+ million for their roster next year. And what I would say is, to me, what stands out, it just feels like that's all true, but we're missing the reason why. It's because we had a bunch of teams filled with fifth-year seniors that now have to replace that roster, and there's no more fifth-year seniors in the portal. The COVID waiver is over. So think about all the fifth-year seniors. Kentucky's entire roster was basically fifth-year seniors. Auburn's entire roster was basically fifth-year seniors. You go on and on down the list. Nellie Davis was a fifth-year senior at Arkansas. BYU had 3 or 4 of them. St. John's, Kadari Richmond, on and on. There's no replacing them in the portal because those guys don't exist because they don't have a fifth year. So the portal is on fire. I still think we're going to get another wave of guys this week. The portal technically closes next Wednesday, I believe. But what I want to do now, because I've had so many people ask me, like, Torres, who's even in the portal at this point? What are they, who's available? Who's good? Who's not? What does it mean? Where are they going? Let's go ahead and dive in. This is a Sunday night portal update. And as I always tell you, this stuff is always subject to change. We are recording here at 7:50 Eastern time. So by the time many of you see this, some of these guys may be out of the portal. They may be committed. There might be new guys in. But let's go ahead and dive into who is actually in the portal as of 7:50 Eastern time and where we think they're going to go. First name, and I think really story that I want to get into. By the way, I should mention, if you are not following our CBB Transfers page, CBB Transfers on Twitter, CBB Transfers on Instagram, that's where you need to go for all your late-breaking portal news. So I think, to me, probably the most interesting name in the portal, Ian Jackson. Well, there's a lot, so I don't want to put it on one guy. But let's get you caught up on everything you need to know. Ian Jackson, we talked about him, former McDonald's All-American, played this past season at North Carolina. Interesting player in that he had some very good moments. I mean, again, the middle of the year, he was one of the best players in the ACC. 24 points against UCLA right before Christmas, 26 points against Campbell, 23 at Louisville on January 1st, 27 against Notre Dame. He then proceeds to really struggle down the stretch, no double digits in his last 7 games, and decides to enter the portal. Bottom line is he still ended up averaging 12 points as a freshman. And how about this? All things considered, 39.5% shooting from 3. Enters the portal last week. The interesting update is 2 parts. One, he did visit USC earlier in the weekend. He had a relationship with Eric Musselman, dating back to when Eric Musselman was the head coach at Arkansas. He visits USC. I still think the favorite there is St. John's, though. We did a standalone segment on St. John's. They were calling this the weekend of the Mega Haul, hashtag the Mega Haul. Ian Jackson was visiting. Xavier Lee, we'll get to in a minute, was visiting. Oziah Sellers from Stanford and also Dylan Mitchell from Cincinnati, all visiting this weekend. And the thing about St. John's needs guards. They need guards. Kadari Richmond is gone. RJ Lewis is in the portal. I know he was more of a wing. But I just bring it up because this match seems like it makes sense. Remember, when Ian Jackson was being recruited out of high school, he commits to North Carolina during his junior year. Then basically his entire senior year, it felt like he was being asked about, are you going to decommit and end up at St. John's? He goes to Carolina. He hits the portal. My guess is right now he would end up at St. John's. He was supposed to be visiting on Sunday. We will see if Rick Pitino can get a commitment. Other interesting name from the portal, who was also at St. John's this weekend, Xavier Lee from Princeton. We talked about him again. We did a special segment on the Mega Haul. That's what they're calling it. But he was at Princeton 2 years ago. He averaged about 17 a game. This year he averages 16.9, 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 37% from three. And even last year, I think there were a lot of people that were wondering, is this guy going to enter the portal? He doesn't. He returns to Princeton, puts up the stats I just told you. Now he is as coveted as any player in the portal. He did visit St. John's this weekend, but he also is on a visit to Kansas as we speak. Florida is in the mix. Duke is in the mix as well. You know, Kansas to me is a little bit of a curveball. I was not expecting them to get involved. And so I just bring it up because I will be very curious to see, can Kansas make a move? I thought, to me, as much as I thought Ian Jackson was a pseudo lock to end up at St. John's, I did not necessarily think Xavier Lee was the same way. And so is it going to be Florida? Florida needs to replace its entire backcourt off the national championship team. Could it be Duke? Could Kansas be in the mix? But also he just visited St. John's. So 2 elite guards. They were both on campus this weekend at St. John's. We will see if our buddy Rick Pitino can close. Let's go ahead and get to another name we just talked about in the Kentucky segment. That is Lamar Wilkerson, Ashdown, Arkansas, elite scorer. I've heard a lot of people say this, and I think it's fair. He's kind of this year's Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier played at Tennessee, elite scorer, mid-major level, stepping up a level. I think he'll be able to handle the step up well. Chaz Lanier was like, boom, no issues, no problems, no whatever. Lamar Wilkerson, I expect the same. 20.5 points per game, 45% shooting from beyond the three-point arc. We just talked about him in the Kentucky segment. Visited Indiana to start the weekend. By all accounts, Indiana maybe was even in the driver's seat going into the weekend, but there was an awful lot of buzz on Sunday afternoon while everybody else was watching the Masters. Many of you watching Torres, as a matter of fact. Lamar Wilkerson was at Keeneland Racetrack with Mark Pope, so we'll see if Mark Pope closes. If Mark Pope closes, to me, top 5 team. I mean, you got Lamar Wilkerson, Otega Oweh, Jalen Lowe, Jaden Quaintance, Brandon Garrison, Mo Diabate. That is an elite team. That is a really good team, athletic, skilled. I didn't mention Jasper Johnson, Colin Chandler. That's a really good team. We'll see if they can close. Now, Lamar Wilkerson had planned 4 visits, also Ole Miss and Auburn. And as of coming into the weekend, the expectation was that he was going to, in fact, make those visits. So we will see what happened. Lamar Wilkerson was on campus at Kentucky this weekend. We will see if he ends up committing to Kentucky, committing to Indiana, or taking those final 2 visits. Let's keep it going. There's a couple other names that I do want to talk about. And let me go ahead and talk about a guy that, to me, just becomes a very interesting player in a very interesting moment in time. How about this? I'll tell you what. Let me see who I got next on my list here, because I do have a full list here of guys that I want to talk about. Let's see. Where do we go from here? Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to switch gears. I want to talk about a guy that I think we'll be talking about a lot on this pod over the next couple years. We're talking about Will Wade and NC State, okay? So first of all, Will Wade silently kind of cooking at NC State. Brought 2 players with him from McNeese State so far, Kadir Copeland, and I'm blanking on the other one. Also, Matt Abel, former top 25 prospect in America who was committed to Miami. ends up deciding to instead decommit after the coaching change and ends up going to NC State. On Sunday, he got a commitment. This is Will Wade at NC State from a very talented player, Trey Holloman, guard that played the last 3 years at Michigan State, okay? So Michigan State, I'll tell you this. I remember seeing Trey Holloman. I was at, if you remember, 3 seasons ago, Michigan State opened on one of those aircraft carrier games in San Diego. I was actually there. It was Gonzaga, Michigan State. I was like, who is this kid? He's a freshman. He plays his butt off, but evolved into a very nice player for Michigan State this year. 9.5 points per game, 3.7 assists. Not a great three-point shooter, but he committed to NC State over the weekend. I think what becomes interesting to me I lost my train of thought there. The computer did not freeze. What becomes interesting to me is who is next at NC State. I think the name you have to keep an eye out on, Mackenzie Mbako. Okay, so Mackenzie Mbako, we've talked a lot about. He was a former 5-star, former McDonald's All-American, originally committed to Duke, decommit, spends the last 2 years at Indiana. I don't really blame him that he never really developed. I think it was more of a Mike Woodson playing 7 big guys at once kind of thing. But he averaged 12.5 points, 4 rebounds per game. Incredibly talented, but he just never really fully put it together. And so Mackenzie Mbako enters the portal and enters the NBA draft. It felt like it was trending Kentucky and NC State. But one, Kentucky took Jelavic, the big man from Croatia. And then 2, NC State, I think, is quietly in pretty good position. Will Wade, I talked about this when Mackenzie Mbako entered. Will Wade quietly made a monster hire at the GM position, a guy by the name of Andrew Slater. Andrew Slater was a grassroots guy who I'm telling you is as plugged in as anybody in college hoops. And Andrew Slater has a great relationship with the Mbako family. I remember during the recruitment where he committed to Indiana, I remember Andrew Slater was covering it like it was, he was in the media at the time. He was covering it like it was, Watergate or something. Mackenzie Mbako's here, visiting Kansas, visiting Indiana, going to commit. When's he going to commit? And so Andrew Slater has a great relationship with the family, and that's kind of a spot where Mackenzie Mbako can go in and perform right away. So Will Wade, I think, is quietly cooking, and I think it's going to be a very, very interesting couple days for NC State. Can they close on Mackenzie Mbako? I would assume, I think it's almost certain that Kentucky is out. They took Mo Diabate. They took the Croatian kid. I don't really see how they would still be in the market for another big guy. Let's keep it going. Let's stay in the Carolinas. I think it's an interesting scenario going on at North Carolina. They've taken a few players, and now it feels to me like they're in a little bit of a holding pattern for, by the way, nobody says, I'm going to switch gears really quick. Nobody said Will Wade invented NIL. So it's funny you say that, nobody. I was speaking at an NIL panel on the Friday of the Final Four, so before the 2 semifinals. I spoke at like 9, 10 a.m. Eastern. I was on a panel with Joe Tipton, Adam Finkelstein. Will Wade was the final speaker at that event. And Will Wade opens his presentation by basically saying something to the effect of, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. By the way, I think he said something to the effect of, you've heard a lot of great speakers today. I'm the only one who could have spoken on an NIL panel 5 years ago. So Will Wade is very much playing into the role. But Will Wade, I think, is going to cook, and I don't think he's done. And we're going to talk about why here in a second. Again, make sure you're following CBB Transfers on Twitter, CBB Transfers on Twitter and Instagram as well for all your late-breaking portal news. Okay, so let's keep it going. So why are we talking about Will Wade? Why are we talking about NC State? And I think, truthfully, a lot of it has to do with the fact that basically UNC is in a very interesting situation, okay? Because UNC, I think they're waiting for a decision on Drake Powell. Former 5-star, played at North Carolina, kind of a nice little wing player, didn't really develop, but right now they're kind of in a holding pattern because they are going after 2 big wing players, and they need to know if Drake Powell is going to be back before they can take him. The first one, Cannon Catchings, we've talked a lot about Cannon Catchings on this show, was committed at one point to Purdue, ends up decommitting from Purdue, going to BYU this past year. And it was so interesting to watch the evolution there because BYU early on was very committed to playing the young guys, playing the kids with NBA upside. And I think Kevin Young realized pretty early on, we have to go play the players that are going to help us win. And so Cannon Catchings kind of got pushed to the back seat. And I only bring it up because he showed flashes, but it wasn't totally there. 21 points against Florida A&M, 23 in a win over Baylor, 14 in a win at Arizona, but it just wasn't consistent enough. So he hit the portal. He ends up visiting North Carolina this weekend. I think a lot of people thought that he was maybe going to commit to North Carolina. Instead, he doesn't commit to Carolina, and I think they're in a holding pattern, trying to figure out, okay, like what's the deal here? What's the deal here? Is Drake Powell coming back? Is he not? Would he take Cannon Catchings? And now they're saying Cannon Catchings may visit Georgia next. So we'll see if that happens. Speaking of UNC, I think it's kind of the same deal with Jaron Stevenson. We talked about him. I actually like Jaron Stevenson a lot. I got a lot of pushback for saying that a few episodes ago, but he is a player that played at Alabama the last 2 years, 6'10" forward, originally from Chapel Hill, goes to Alabama, reclassifies, and showed flashes. He had 19 in an Elite Eight win against Clemson 2 years ago, 22 in a win over Texas this year. They don't go to a Final Four last year without Jaron Stevenson. So I only bring it up because I thought he got lost a little bit in the front court with Grant Nelson, with Cliff Omoyori. He ends up transferring. I think he's kind of in the same boat as Cannon Catchings. North Carolina is the school that makes the most sense, but are they waiting on a decision from Drake Powell? That remains to be seen. And if not, could Jaron Stevenson end up being going to NC State with Will Wade? So those are all names to keep an eye on. Those are names to follow. Two more notes. Another player from Bama that I like is Darian Reed. So Darian Reed was a McDonald's All-American a year ago, ends up going to Bama. And I felt bad for this kid because he was a guy that I thought was playing very well early in the season. He played very well early. He had 11 points in a win over Carolina, 12 points in a win over Creighton, 10 points in a win over Rutgers. Got some burn in the loss at Purdue. But as the season wore on, two things happened. One, he got hurt, injured a hamstring, was slow to come back. And when he was slow to come back, other guys just stepped up. Again, Grant Nelson, Cliff Omoyori. Alabama actually played that small lineup with Aiden Holloway, Mark Sears, and LeBaron Philon. And there was really no spot for Darian Reed. So to me, he has NBA upside, NBA potential. I don't think he fully showed it this year, but he ends up hitting the portal. He's from Georgia. It feels like Georgia is the leader in the clubhouse. And we'll see if they can close there. If I had a spot on the wing, I would be going after this kid hard because I think he's an NBA player, even if he didn't show it at Alabama. Lastly, do want to talk about one more player because we got to talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks. I mean, Arkansas been pretty quiet. We're trying to figure out who is returning. By the way, I still think the most important recruiting John Calipari can do. Can he get Carter Knox back? Can he get Trevin Brazile back? Can he get Billy Richmond back? Can he get DJ Wagner back? But also, there are spots to fill. The most notable ones are in the front court, okay? Remember, in the front court, Big Z is transferred. Jonas Adu graduates. Adu Thero is going pro. And so what does that mean? It means you need bodies and you need them freaking quick, okay? Last week, we talked a little bit about Nick Pringle. Could he commit? This week, it'll be interesting. Malik Ewan, the second leading scorer and leading rebounder at Florida State, is set to visit on Monday. Jackson Collier, my buddy, JC Hoops from Rivals, first one to report that as far as I could tell. He was the first one to report it. And Malik Ewan is a guy. Oh, Rory won the Masters. Okay. By the way, for people just joining us, we went on live as the Masters was finishing. And Rory missed the putt on 18. I guess he has won the Masters, but we're back to the portal. Okay. So Malik Ewan, second leading scorer, leading rebounder at Florida State. This was a guy that I think Arkansas was on commit watch for him a while ago, doesn't end up committing, and now he is set to visit on Monday. I think if you're Arkansas, I know that I've said that John Calipari likes to kind of move in silence, and he's not going to be rushed on anybody else's time frame outside of his own. But I do think you got to start making moves. It's now mid-April. The portal is about to close, and we'll see what happens with him. Good news is he is set to visit, as I said, on Monday. He will take another visit as well later this week. I will say this, though. I mean, he is kind of the low post, kind of the perfect answer to replacing Jonas Adu. If you can pair him with Trevin Brazil, and Carter Knox, it's a really good team. So Arkansas, again, I think the top priority has to be, we're going to go ahead and focus on retaining the players that we need to retain. But if you can land Malik Ewan, you go ahead and do it. You need a person at the 5 spot because they do need bodies in the front court. We'll see what happens. It feels like it's going to be a big week at Arkansas. If anybody's going to hit the portal, and there's whispers about DJ Wagner, could it happen? Could it not? It feels like it's got to be this week. And then also, it feels like guys are going to have to announce that they're returning, right? If Carter Knox is coming back, I would think that gets announced this week. Billy Richmond, the same. Trevin Brazil, the same. DJ Wagner, the same, if he ends up coming back. But it feels like it has to happen this week. We'll see what happens. All right. I think that's it for this episode of the Aaron Torres pod. Goodness gracious. What a show. By the way, fun fact, no producer Matt today. Producer Matt is like not in very good health. Not like he's going to die or anything, but just very sick. We had a fun, busy week in San Antonio, and so he was not available. So hope, producer Matt, we all hope you get better. But I do think we are going to get out of here. A couple quick comments. B99 says, DJ is the most important piece at Arkansas. Most of their fans act like they could care less if he returns. I don't get that vibe at all from Arkansas fans. I feel like Arkansas fans know how valuable he is and know how important he is. And so, yeah, I don't buy that at all. Let's see here. There was one other one that I wanted to get to. Oh, Eddie Congress says, I've been following Andrew Slater on Twitter for years, went to his account after he was announced at NC State, and boy, did he whitewash his account. He's a professional now. He's been working for the Oklahoma City Thunder for the last couple years. So, yeah, let's see here. Let's see here. I think that's it. Josh Burton coming in on Nico. I hope no high major program even sniffs at Nico. Teach them a $4 million lesson. I'll be curious. I'll tell you this. I mean, you know, the most likely landing spot is honestly UCLA. UCLA doesn't even pay its coaches $4 million. I don't think you're getting $4 million from UCLA. USC maybe has the money. I don't think that they're going to spend it just on him. So we will see what happens there. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Great show, Torres. I appreciate everybody's support. Let's see. Where was that one right there? I guess, what's his face? Great show, Torres. Get producer Matt back up, right? We're going to tell him that he hope he feels better. But yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Appreciate everybody's support. If you're not subscribed to the show, please by the way, monster audience on a Sunday night. So we appreciate your support. If you're not subscribed, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure to rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. I dropped the link to our podcast there. Do me a favor. Do your boy Torres a solid. Go leave a 5-star rating and review. And then also download some podcasts. This episode will be up tonight, first thing tomorrow, whatever. So subscribe, download some podcasts there. We appreciate your support. All for today's show. I'm going to get out of here. If there's portal news Monday, we will be back Monday. If not, we'll definitely be back Tuesday. Time for me to go. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel Hates My Voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, UF-Ed. Shout out Rory McIlroy, who apparently won the Masters while I was doing this show. We'll be back. New episode, Aaron Torres Pod. Appreciate everybody's support.